Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. Now this looks a little odd and maybe a bit surreal because it's actually taken in a fish tank underwater. So here I have the fish tank and I have suspended in that this flower, and it's attached to this clamp just to hold it in place. Flowers do tend to float, so you do have to force them down underneath the water. Okay, I've got a few weights on here just to make the whole thing a bit more stable, and then I've got the camera set up looking slightly up at the subject. You've got to remember that this is all done upside down. So in the final image, this will all be the other way up. So if I want to have an image which is looking down on the subject, when I actually take it, it needs to be looking slightly up. That's why the camera is lower than the subject. So on the camera I have a 24 to 70mm zoom lens, and I'm starting off at about 50mm, so you can see all the general area and the way that this is set up. This is tethered as usual into Capture One so that everyone can see what's going on. Okay, so first thing, as usual, I'll just take a blank frame without any lighting just to see the contamination we're getting from the house lights. There you go, and you can see from that image that we're getting quite a reasonable picture actually. This is because the camera is set in manual and it's set at 1/30th of a second for a shutter speed. Now the flash sync speed that I will be using today is 1/250th of a second. So I'll just reset that and we'll try that again. Okay, that's improved things somewhat. The aperture is set to 2.8. I will not be using that at 2.8. It will be far too narrow a depth of field. We'll start off at f8 and see what that looks like. There we go. And the image has virtually disappeared altogether. Okay, so with that little exercise complete, I'll just put the flash sync on the top of the camera, so, and we'll start thinking about what we're going to do for lighting. Now in the final image I had a blue background. Now what you can see in here is that I have this grey card set up at the back here. Now this is so that I can project a light onto that card, which will then colour it. I'm using grey because you'll get the maximum effect out of that. If you just use a white card, you won't get a very saturated colour. And if you use a black card, you'll need quite a lot of energy to make it work. So using a grey is a very good compromise. Okay, so time to set up a light. So for the light on the background, I'm going to use this Profoto B1X. This is a battery-powered studio flash, 500 joules, has a modelling light and so on. But quite frankly, for this type of image, you could just use a normal flash gun. It doesn't have to be something as powerful as this. So I'll just get this set. So I'm just going to pop a stand down here at the back. Just put the light on there. Just turn that on. There we go. It's set to an arbitrary energy level of 5. That will probably need to be altered. And what I'm doing is just pointing it up at the card like so. So with that in position, I'm just going to check in the viewfinder just to make sure I can't see that light, which I can't. And we'll just go for a test exposure. So we're starting to get a glow behind the flower. But it needs a bit more energy. So I'm just going to add a couple of stops and see how we go. So I'll just select that flash and just add 2 stops of energy, like so. Give that another test. There we go. That's given me the sort of glow that I want. Now I want the glow to graduate from what will be the top of the image, which is the bottom down here, down to the horizon line, which will be this along here. So that is why I've got the flash at the back there pointing quite so far up in the air. Okay, so that's more or less in the right place, but I need to add some colour to it. So for that I'm just going to use this gel in a holder, which I'm just going to put on the front of the light. That just presses on like that. Then that will give a blue cast to the light on the card. So we'll just take an image. There we are. That has added the blue to the background. It's probably a little underexposed. That is because the filter will take some of the energy out. So I'll just add another stop. That's better. This is what we had before. This is what we've got now. Now we've also got this highlight appear, which is actually from the outside of the light just here. So what I need to do is just add a flag to this, just to flag that off so that we don't end up with a reflection in the back of the tank. On the top here, and just attach that with a small clamp. Just like that. Okay. So with that in place, we'll take another image. There, and that has now removed those highlights. So this is what we had before, and that's what we have now. Okay, so with all that set, the background is more or less there. What I need to do now is think about how I'm going to light the flower itself. And for that, I'm just going to use a studio head, a flash, just at the side of the tank, just to give some side lighting onto the flower. Okay, here I have a B2 flash head, Profoto B2 flash head on a stand. This pack and head system is now discontinued and has been replaced with the B10. It's a similar energy level. But quite honestly, for again this type of photography, you don't need anything like this. You can do it with a speed light, a flash gun. In fact, for this, it's probably as simple, if not a little easier, because the actual physical size of the flash needs to be quite small. As you can see, I'm getting this in very close. It's almost touching the side of the tank. I've set that to an arbitrary energy level of 5. We'll see how we go. But before I actually take a test exposure, I'll just turn off the flash which is at the back. So we'll just select the flash at the back, and we'll turn that head off, and now take an exposure. Okay, so you can see from that there is quite a lot of energy there. I suspect probably 2 or 3 stops overexposed. So I'm going to take the energy down by 3 stops. Select the flash. 2, 3. There we go. And that bleep tells me that I'm at the base energy level for that flash unit. We'll just give that another test. Now you can see in this image that the exposure is very nearly there, and it looks quite sharp. Let's just zoom in a little and have a look around the image. Yes, the stem isn't quite sharp, but the flower itself is. So what I might actually do is just adjust the aperture to give me a bit more depth of field. So if I just change that from 8 to say 16, which is 2 stops, just zoom out again, I will then need to add 2 stops of energy to the flash. So I'll do that, and we'll take that again. So you can see that the exposure is virtually identical, but now the depth of field is much bigger. So the stem is now in focus nicely, and the front of the flower is also in focus, which is what I want. Okay, so with that flash set, that's about it really for the lighting. Obviously I'm going to add another 2 stops to the flash at the back to counteract increasing the aperture. So I'll just do that now before I forget. So I'll just select that, turn the head back on, and just add 2 stops of energy. Like so. And with that turned on, we'll just give that another image. Okay, so you can see now that we have the blue background and the illuminated flower, and everything's looking about right. It needs to be framed properly, so I'm just going to zoom the lens in a little whilst looking through the viewfinder. There we are. Something like that. And I'll just adjust the angle on the camera. We'll just try that. Yeah, possibly that's gone a little too far. Let me just take that back out again. There we are. There we go. There we are. That's good. That's the sort of thing I want. So with that head set, the lighting is now more or less complete. So now it's just down to adding a bit more interest into the image. And for that, what I did was just disturb the surface. And the way I'm going to do that is just by using this container. I'm just going to take some of the liquid in the tank here and just drip that into the tank whilst taking the image, like this. So you can see in that short sequence that I just took that sometimes the flash at the back wasn't firing. That was because it took longer to recycle. So this is the very beginning. This is when the flash at the back didn't fire. And these are the ones that I've got going forwards. I particularly like this one actually. I think this has worked quite well. Just as a preview, so what I can do is just turn this image the other way up. I'll just select that. There. And that's showing the beginnings of our final image. So now it's just a case of taking some more images and then going through and picking the best of the bunch. So I'll just recharge my glass. Like this. And then just starting at the back, I'm just going to disturb the surface and take the image. And moving slightly further forward, I'll do the same again. and just carry on until I've got the image that I want. So having captured all the images, it just remains to go into Photoshop and do the final post-processing. So this is my chosen image, and here I am in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is just turn it through 180 degrees. So if I just come down to image rotation and just click on the 180 degrees, that will put it what I'm going to call the right way up. Okay. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is just address all these various distractions around the outside of the image. In the final image there will be a crop applied, but before I do that I just want to get rid of these various bits and pieces around the outside. Now what I've chosen to do is go to Filter and go to Liquify. Now using the Liquify tool for this means that I can maintain the graduation that I've got on the background. I'll show you what I mean as I go along. So I've just got this set to forward warp. I'll pick a brush size, maybe something slightly bigger than that. There we go. And basically you can just move the image around. So for instance, if I just want to increase the top here, what I can do is just grab a bit of the top and just push it upwards like this. So I can go along. I want to be fairly careful near the flower so I don't distort the flower, but it doesn't really matter if I distort the things that are around it like that. This side, and so on. Now I can use the same technique down the edges here. So if I just grab hold of that bit and push it over. There are other ways to do this, but I find that doing it this way gives you quite a lot of control. There will be some bits that you won't be able to do like this. But we can address those another way in a moment. And just on the horizon line, I just want to be fairly careful that I keep it relatively straight. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then on the other side, just do the same thing. So just move all these bits over to the side a bit, like that. Okay, so with all that complete, just click on the OK button, and that will return you to familiar surroundings of Photoshop. So with the Liquify stage completed, I think the next thing to have a look at would be just to have a look at a crop. I think this might be suited to a square image. And I just want to straighten up the horizon line ever so slightly. So I'm just going to use the straighten command and just draw a guide across there. Something like that. There we are. And that's just twisted the whole thing round a little just to bring the horizon back into a straight line. I think I might just take the bottom up a little, just like that. And yeah, I think for the time being that will do me. So I'll just click on OK. There we are. And there we have it. That's my take on a surrealist, arty flower picture. Something different to just having your flowers in a vase. Now, if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.